Good afternoon, Mr. Bell. How are you?
I'm okay.
Mr. Bell, you are serving a life sentence for aggravated rape and an additional 10-year sentence for aggravated crime against nature. Um, You were convicted or you were sentenced in 93, you were resentenced in 94. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Also, Mr. Bell, you had a previous conviction for an indecent behavior with a juvenile. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What can you tell us about that incident?
I sexually molested my 5-year-old stepdaughter.
How old was the child? I'm sorry, did you say 5?
Excuse me.
I couldn't hear you. How
Yes,
old
you
was
said
your
5.
stepchild?
She was 5 years old.
And the victim in this case was 9 years old. Is that correct?
9-year-old. Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Bell, you used some interesting language when you were talking about the facts of your case. You said you admit to a shameful, lustful disposition. Where did you hear those words, a lustful disposition?
I attended a sex offenders program since I've been here.
Okay. How long ago did you complete that program?
I can't recall right away because I've suffered a stroke and I have a little brain damage.
2006.
Was it early in your incarceration?
Judge Jackson, it was in 2006 he completed it.
Yeah, in 2006.
All right, thank you very much. Can you tell me what you learned from participating in sex offender classes?
I've learned that I was a pedophile at one time in my life.
So and obviously when your victims are prepubescent little girls, 5 and 9, that's clear. But one of the things that you said was that you were once a pedophile, but you have been delivered and you're no longer attracted to underage children. What does that mean that you've been delivered?
I've been delivered or I've been changed from having that type of character.
How do you know?
I don't have the desire to do anything like that anymore.
Well, I will tell you, Mr. Bell, pedophilia is not something that you just, get over. It's not like a bad habit like smoking a cigarette. This is a deep psychological problem that a person has that causes them to be sexually aroused by little girls. And so I'm interested in trying to figure out why you believe you've been delivered from this condition.
I have the spirit of Christ inside of me now, and I really don't have the desire to do anything like that. And I'm a changed individual from the person that I was. And I come to understand that I was kind of twisted back then, really twisted.
Well, I agree with that as well. But you have to convince us. You have to make us believe that you've really changed. And so I'm trying to find out the process or the steps or your evolution from being a pedophile to now no longer being attracted to little girls. So can you kind of walk us through how that journey, if you will?
Yes, ma'am. I can make an attempt to convince you. Well, I've never been as close to God as I am right now. And just this experience alone, and I really feel bad about what I did back then. And I come to realize that I betrayed the trust of a lot of people and those children. And it really hurts.
Do you ever think about the impact your actions may have had on the lives of those girls, not as girls now, but as maybe young women? Have you ever given any thought to how what you did to them when they were just babies really might have impacted how they are today?
Yes, I've given that's an extreme, deep consideration. Every day I've been behind these bars, you know, I betrayed their trust. I think my actions, I feel as though my actions has caused them a deep and severe pain. I just hope that it helped them in their lives, that they would at least keep moving forward and positive.
Do you recognize that children who are sexually abused usually develop substance abuse problems in the future? They develop low self-esteem, which may lead them to sexual promiscuity. Do you understand that what you did was not just a one-time thing or one-time harm? It's something that's going to affect them the rest of their lives.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about this stroke. Tell me about the stroke that you had, and when was it, and what has been the impact of the effects of the stroke?
The stroke has really just given me an opportunity to make significant changes as to how I'm going to live my life in the future.
But let me ask you this. When did you have the stroke?
I had the stroke in 2011.
And what parts of your body have been affected by the stroke?
Well, ma'am, my whole body has been affected. My left side is really very hard to control. And my mind, my brain, as far as total recall of anything and everything, in my memory, gives me a little chance, gives me a bad time, just trying to, recall anything that I may have discussed a minute before, or maybe a few seconds before, to recall it totally. In my left side, I don't have too much mobility as far as controlling it.
Do you have a prison job?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
What is your prison job?
My previous occupation here is inmate counsel substitute.
All right. And how long have you been doing that?
I've been doing this for, since 2006. I started off, but now I just recently got it back. It's been 2006 at this moment.
Well, if you have some cognitive impairments, if you have trouble remembering things or retaining information, how are you able to do your job as inmate counsel?
For my job as inmate counsel, I assist guys that's having problems just understanding the proceedings and the procedures for appealing their convictions and sentences. And I do a lot of research. I help them find information and supply them with that information to help them help themselves.
And you indicated in your release plan that there was a janitorial job available to you. Is that correct? Did I see that right?
Yes, my brother Frank Bell, he has a janitorial service. And he's gonna assist me with, getting some type of employment.
But in the janitorial service?
Yes, ma'am.
How are you gonna do that if the left side of your body is, you don't have control or mobility on the left side of your body? How are you gonna be able to do janitorial work?
Well, I can do some type of sweeping and mopping with my right side. I believe I can operate some type of machinery to, a buffer or something like that, because I have some experience with that. I used to work for Oxford Foundation Hospital back in the 70s. And I do help guys inside the dormitory areas. I might do a little sweeping and mopping and help them out. I help people to help themselves.
And how old are you, Mr. Bell?
I'm 59 years old.
Tell me the programs or some of the programs that you've completed during your incarceration.
Well, I've attended a risk management program, sex offenders program, that's what it is. I've attended an anger management, 100 hours of pre-release. I've participated in the Lifers organization in Angola Special Civics Project, Pardon and Parole.
Well, what's that special civics project? Tell me about that.
Angola Special Civics Project is actually an opportunity to become more familiar with this process right here.
All right. And what about Living in Balance 1 and 2? Did you do those?
The living in balance is predicated on substance abuse.
Did you complete both phases of that?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
All right, that's all I have, Ms. Renatza.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Roche has a question.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I only have one question. Mr. Bell, you said you had your stroke in 2011,
Yes, sir.
and you've been classified as disabled since then, right?
Yes, sir.
And what's your current duty status?
My current duty status is regular duty with restriction squad B.
So how does an offender who had a stroke in 2011 and a disciplinary write-up for defiance in 212, a aggravated disobedience in 212, a fighting disciplinary write-up in 212, a aggravated disobedience in 213, and you had another fight in 2014. How does one who's disabled, had a stroke, have so many disciplinary write-ups after the stroke?
Well, sir, to explain myself regarding that, I was just basically attacked. And I was just trying to protect myself as best as I could. I didn't really come out of it too well, any one of them. I lost my teeth from getting, sucker punched. The stroke kind of just made my thinking a little bit off a little bit, and people don't like the way that I respond to them when they do certain things or say certain things to me.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. I appreciate it. Thank you. That's all, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Warren Lamartiniere, is there anything you can add to the conversation?
I think I pretty much covered everything. The only thing I can add is he is a minimum C trustee. He's been that for about 6 years, and that's the highest trustee he will probably ascertain due to his charges.
Okay, good, thank you. Ms. Roden, could you introduce our speakers?
Yes, ma'am. First, we'll hear from Dwight Bell Jr. Mr. Bell, you have 3 minutes. Unmute your mic and make your statement, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Dwight Bell Jr., the son of Dwight Bell Sr. And I'm here in support of him. Throughout my life, he's been very instrumental and guiding me throughout my life. I graduated from school, attended college. I just started my own business. You know, he's been there supporting me, talking me through it, moral support, spiritual support. You know, I miss him, you know, and I'm just ready for him to be home, you know, with his family. And you know, we had, you know, we're lining up some things for him to make sure when he comes into society that he'll have that same support that he's shown to me. You know, moral, spiritual, community programs will help him. You know, put him in to help him through this transition if this parole is being granted for him.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bell. Next, we'll hear from Ms. Sandra Hampton. Ms. Hampton? Ms. Hampton, if you'll dial *6 to unmute your phone, please.
Okay, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good afternoon. And thank you all for the opportunity to be able to speak in behalf of Dwight Bell Sr. He's my first cousin. His mother, his late mother, and my grandmother were sisters. My mother, who is 83 years of age, is the last of the family. And in support of not only myself, but she's encouraged us to do what the family stands for, and that is to remain a family that is strong, prayerful, and we are a family of faith. We are eternally grateful that God is a God of another chance. And we are also as grateful to those individuals such as yourself who will hear our heartfelt desire while considering Dwight's fate. It is, as little Dwight has said, his son, it is our commitment as a family to Dwight, one to another, to embrace the environment that will be safe and sound by working together in unity as a family. We will continue to access program to help rehabilitate Dwight, bring mental, emotional, and spiritual healing that gets him to the root for true transformation. Now, I am not only Dwight's first cousin, but I'm a firm believer that fate conquers all. And I'm a woman of faith, such as his late mother, who lived to be 94 years old. And it is our prayer that all are considered as his fate is, you know, is in the hands of you all. We are also committed to help restore and cultivate honorable citizenship that educates and teaches life skills and provides opportunity to be productive members of society. And I thank God also, not just for our family, but a son such as his son, Dwight Jr., who was not raised by mother or father, but by his late grandmother. But he is a son to be proud of, some of which we pray when we bring children into the world, that they will honor their mother and their father. But his son has done that, along with being very instrumental in his father's well-being. And so it is our prayer that this chance that I know that God will allow, if it's in his will at this very moment, that God is a God of another chance. Now, it was asked of Dwight, and if I can just comment quickly, how does he know that he's been changed and that and he won't repeat the same thing? Well, we've all been born into sin and shaped into iniquity. And so when we say spiritually, we've been changed because we have those desires. We're human. The human side of us would probably challenge us. But as long as we are anchored spiritually in the Lord, then that's someone that can guide us, continue to guide us so that we will make better choices. And so that's what I believe about Dwight. Spiritually, I can't judge him. I can't say what he wouldn't do or I wouldn't do, but I know that the spirit that lives within us does determine the best outcome in what we should and shouldn't do in life. Thank you.
That concludes our speakers.
Thank you. I wasn't aware if Mr. Baker was speaking or not, but we do have your letter in the record. Thank you, sir. Mr. Bell, is there a statement you'd like to make before we vote?
Yes, ma'am. I'm very, very distraught about the fact that I've affected so many people's lives with my actions. I was wrong. I was very wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I apologize to everyone that I affected with my actions. I didn't know I was going to be that type of person to get to that point. I was wrong. I'm so sorry that I did what I did.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Ms. Jackson, this is your case. Are you prepared to be the lead voter?
I would like to ask for executive session.
All right,
Second.
we have a motion for executive session by Ms. Jackson, second by Mr. Roche. Could we get the roll call, please? Ms. Roten, can you do the roll call?
Ms. Renata,
Yes.
Mr. Marabella,
Yes.
Mr. Wise,
Yes.
Mr. Roche,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes. Yes. Mr. Bell, I'll tell you that I went into this hearing feeling one way, and now I feel differently. I believe that you are truly remorseful for your actions. I see how you've accepted complete responsibility. You made no attempt to make excuses or to blame anyone else for your actions. It seems that when you use language, you know, your lustful, you said your shameful lustful disposition. And that's why I asked, where did you get those terms, lustful disposition? And you said that you got it from your sex offender training. So it's apparent to me that you weren't just a body in the room, that you were actually there trying to learn and be transformed in your thinking. I take into consideration that you've been in prison for about 27 years. I take into consideration that you are the highest grade of trustee. I take into consideration that you have had a stroke, which may impact your recidivism and limit your ability to find yourself involved in this kind of behavior again. But I do believe that you truly are remorseful. You truly have empathy for the young ladies now that you have harmed and everyone else harmed by this. And because of that, my recommendation is to commute your sentence to 99 years with parole eligibility, immediate parole eligibility.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Marabella?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Bell, I came in with the same feeling as Ms. Jackson has expressed here today. In listening to you, you do sound very remorseful. It sounds like you have taken to heart the training that you've learned in sex offender treatment. I'm going to caution you that if you are released in the future, that you make sure that you maintain a support system to make sure that you don't fall back into those things. Pedophilia is a disease. It's not something that goes away. It may be no longer on the surface, but it's there somewhere. And you need to be vigilant about that and make sure that you continue to be aware of that. But based upon what you've accomplished, what you've done, it's my vote as well to commute your sentence to 99 years and make you immediately parole eligible. That would be my vote, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Mr. Wise?
At this time, I'm gonna be voting to deny. Yes, strong law enforcement opposition. Also, you have your criminal history, and you admitted that you do have a problem, and I know you're working on the problem. I just think just keep working on that problem and work on as many sex offender classes as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Mr. Roche?
Mr. Bell, based upon strong opposition from law enforcement, the DA's office is adamantly opposed, and this is not your first sex offense. You have a history of sex offenses. Based on all those reasons, I deny your request.
So, Mr. Bell, you've received 2 votes to grant, 2 votes to deny. So the outcome of today's proceedings is that your application for clemency has been denied, sir. Good luck to you.
You know, it's just thank goodness for Mr. O'Shea and I you know, and even I'll dare say it, Jim Wise. Jim Wise drives me nuts, but he's pretty consistent with rejecting people in general. And for whatever the reasons are, but at least he's there for the rejection. I mean, how can you release a serial repeat offender at any time? It's something that I can simply now. Okay, so let's unpack this. I mean, one is I'm sorry that I don't have any information on this. I don't have cases. I don't even have the information of how much time he was sentenced for his first molestation of a juvenile charge of his 5-year-old stepson. But I wouldn't be surprised if he got between a year and 5 years, maybe even probation. I don't know the sentencing, the timeline between that first conviction and the second one. We just don't have information on this case. But when Miss Jackson started with the interview, I said, thank you. I'm so glad that Miss Jackson has this case, because she comes in there just really, I think the only way, only how Miss Jackson can. And he says, well, I've changed. And he says, I've been changed. He says, well, how do you know? You know, it's such a great question. How do you know? And his answers were just so ridiculous. It's like, I just don't have the desire anymore. I have the Spirit of Christ is in me now. And I guess what is he supposed to say? Probably the right answer would have been is to say that I always have the desire, and I'll always need to do certain things to protect myself. You know, I don't know why Mr. Marabella actually said it. He said it's a disease. Well, if this was alcohol that he was talking about, wouldn't Mr. Marabella have denied him for giving those type of answers? Wouldn't the answers have been not I am cured, not I am not an alcoholic anymore, but I will always be what I am? I'll always have this lustful disposition. You know, Miss Jackson was asked him, where did you hear that? Well, I heard it in the program. And, you know, she said, well, you weren't just a body in the room, because you actually heard. And we've seen a lot of these cases. So I don't think we've ever heard someone use those words. Is it possible that he happened to have one person teach the class, the program, and he heard it and that stuck with him? I mean, do you give him credit for thinking of that word, a lustful disposition? That's one way to put it, isn't it? His 5-year-old stepchild and then a 9-year-old. a repeat offender, and those are the 2 times that he was caught. If we are to believe that those are the only 2 times he did it, then you might as well believe that whenever someone's caught with a DUI, it's the first time they drank that they were caught. Whenever someone's caught doing a crime, it's the first time. If you believe that, then sure, I got a bridge to sell you. How does someone like this, Ms. Jackson lists 3 reasons. You've been locked up for 27 years. You're a trustee. And you had a stroke, so maybe you're less of a risk. And I mean, he is lobbying that he can do work, cleaning. He's lobbying. He's saying, this is what I can do. So if you can clean the lobby of a building using a buffer machine, you can harm a 5-year-old. And I just don't understand how anyone can take the chance. And it's not like, he's going into the people who support him, which, I get, you're his son. You're going to have a disposition towards your father regardless. But sir, you made your life out of, you've been successful not because of your father. He's locked up in Angola. You did it maybe because he was locked up in Angola, frankly. And then you hear the other support, and it's, what was it talking about? Again, more of the religious talk and how that's going to, and that's not the type of people that you want around you, the same way that you wouldn't want an addict around people who would be saying that it's Jesus that's going to keep you from drinking again. No, they need to be completely aware of the danger. There aren't 5-year-old girls walking around Angola. When he gets out, you can't have relatives that are just going to be like, the parole officer's not paying attention. Maybe I'll bring over my niece. He'll babysit them. He's fine. I trust him. Jesus is with him. I mean, isn't that terrifying? To me, it is. He was denied. Maybe he'll come up again for commutation sometime soon. If you're wondering how is it that someone who's given a life sentence has the opportunity for a commutation, I'll share the legislation with you. What it requires to get a commutation, and I could say you might be shocked, but you're probably, we've seen it all to know, not... Nothing really shocks us anymore. So, and keep in mind that when you're reading this, that someone came up with the idea to put these laws into place. And I don't know how you can have laws like this in place because it does not take into consideration the victim/survivor, all of their relatives, and then the future potential victims. If someone was given a sentence that is not life, but it could be 99 years, they only need to serve 10 years of that sentence. They could be they could be given a 50-year sentence, an 80-year sentence, even a 300-year sentence. As long as it's not considered a life sentence, they only need to serve 10 years when they can apply for a commutation. And then B, they can't have a write-up for 2 years. I mean, that's it. That's pretty much it. C is that they can't be in maximum custody status. And they have to have a marketable job skill. And this is quite interesting because we just saw his commutation hearing. And again, what's his marketable job skill? to be a paralegal. I don't know. I mean, or to work as a janitor. But again, they're saying he can't move. You can't have it both ways. You can't not be a risk or have a reduced risk because of your stroke, but also have a marketable skill as a janitor. But somehow he got through the process. And this is it. That's all that it requires for someone to reawaken the fear and the trauma in their victims. Just 10 years. So when the judge and the jury and the DA go and give that mega sentence for the mega crime, all it means is you're kicking the ball down the road for 10 years and all that trauma can be stirred, awakened, brought up. And how many times have we seen survivors or representatives of the survivors express the trauma that it has brought on them when they're barely just beginning to start the healing process? It can be brought onto them all over again. And by the way, if you have a life sentence, which means that the judge and the jury said, you know what, you should be locked away for life. The sentence that Dwight was given, 15 years is all the time that you need to wait. 15 years. So, it's totally nuts, in my opinion, that, life does not mean life anymore. When you can apply for a commutation hearing and you just have to have a marketable job, no write-ups for 24 months and not be considered the worst of the worst in prison by not being in maximum, to then at your will, at your really discretion, make the victim survivors, families get up here and have to relive their trauma. How the DA didn't show up for this case, by the way, is just another insult. There are two, we didn't hear from the victims. You might not believe it if you didn't see it. Here it is. And with that, I'll let you go.